All right, hello, and thank you for being here. This is your astrologer, Christian Klausner. So happy, so honored that I get to be here today to give you this live class. We are covering the basics of astrology, the absolute fundamentals. So if you're brand new to astrology, this is the class for you. I'm going to do my best to keep it very simple, very concrete, and just simple. You know, I like simple. And I think the way you can tell if you can really teach a subject or not, or if you know the subject yourself is if you can teach it to a 4-year-old. And I feel as though I would be able to do that. I think I could teach any kid these concepts we're going to talk about today. So I hope to instill some confidence in you, just so you can know that you will absolutely be able to grasp this stuff here. And in my view, astrology is actually a language that you already know. So all I'm going to do is help bring it out of you. That's what I noticed when I, learned astrology. When I started getting into this subject, it was as though I wasn't learning it. It's as though I was rediscovering it, as though all the symbols and all the meanings behind the symbols were already inside me, almost in my ancestral memory or in my DNA, you could say. So you're going to find that these symbols, which are ancient, absolutely ancient symbols, as old as the human mind itself, you're going to start to see that these symbols evoke realities that exist inside of you. They evoke meanings that are one with your being, your existence here on earth. So you're going to start to see that as we learn this language and I teach it to you, you're going to be understanding it from within your own self. And so that's what I hope to show you today. So I've got a little presentation for you that I'm going to show you today. And this is going to just give you a good little introduction into what it is we're doing. I'm hoping I didn't go above and beyond with this stuff. I always tend to do. I like to give more value than you're expecting, but I know we don't want this class to be too long, so I am going to try to blast through this stuff here. Okay, so I've titled, my astrology course is called Your Cosmic Identity. And it's all about realizing who you are. So if you'd like to join my full-length course, it's got 7 assignments you can print out. It's got video walkthroughs for every assignment. And it's got over 20 hours of lectures that I've done live in the past. So that course gives you loads and loads of video content and presentations, and you get the slides of all my presentations. And these 7 assignments are all about mastery of your birth chart. So if you want to really understand astrology, the best place to start with is your birth chart. What we're going to cover today in this class is the basics, the bare bones of the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And then on the next class, we're going to cover the symbols of the planets and understand what planets rule over what signs. And by that time, the picture will become complete and whole. And you're really going to start to understand what the Zodiac is all about. So if you're interested in that full length course, I am going to give you guys a discount on it since you signed up for these classes. And these classes are really going to set you up for that. So if you'd be interested in that, I'd be more than happy to give you my online course. So just a little bit about me. I'm Christian. I was born August 15th, 1993. So I'm a Leo. I've always loved lions. Lions have always been my favorite animal in the entire world. And I was stoked as a kid to learn that my star sign was Leo, the lion. So that was always in the back of my head, like, cool, I don't know what astrology is, but I know I'm the lion, and I think that's awesome because I love lions. The Lion King was my favorite Disney movie growing up. All right, so it wasn't until 2011, right around when I turned 17, 18, starting to graduate high school, that I started getting into astrology because I became very bent on understanding myself. I realized I didn't know who I was. I was a mystery to myself. I had these different personality traits that were very conflicting, and I didn't know how to put it together. I just didn't know who I was. Now, I always have loved psychology because I could always tell that our minds are the ones that create our problems and solve our problems. And really, it's our thinking that determines whether or not we'll be stuck in a cycle or in a problem, or if we can grow out of it. I knew that ever since I was a kid. I could see that the way the adults think is sort of what is determining the way that those adults' lives are going. And I could always self-reflect on myself and sort of see that in me, even as a little kid. So I always loved psychology, but around 18, 17 years old, I took every personality test I could find, because getting out of high school, I realized it was time for me to start doing things in the world, but I didn't know who the doer was. So my mission was to find out, who am I? I need some sort of grasp. And I know God loves me enough that he would give us some sort of tool here on earth where I could figure that out. So after taking every psychological personality test I could find, the Myers-Briggs test, every test I could find, none of them did it for me. They really didn't do it, whatever it was. I didn't feel satisfied. So then I said, what is the most ancient source of knowledge that we have here on earth? What is the oldest knowledge? Because I always knew that the ancients knew things that we have forgotten today. So that led me to find out that astrology is the most ancient source of knowledge we have. All right. We can't even trace its origin. It goes all the way back. And I cover this in the history section of my course, but it goes back to the Babylonians and the Chaldeans, but it even goes before them. There's evidence that they received the knowledge and the insight and the language of astrology from something else, from a source beyond them. So it's the most ancient source of knowledge we have. And after I learned how to read my chart, because I said, okay, I'm going to learn the language, I'm going to learn how to read my chart, I was blown away. It was like I could finally look into a mirror. My birth chart was the mirror, and I could finally see my soul and how my soul was creating my personality and creating these various character traits, right? From where my Venus is, how that shows my love nature, where my moon is, how that shows my insecurities and my need for security, where my sun is and how that shows, how I shine. I could finally put it all together. And my ascendant being an Aquarius, with Saturn conjunct my ascendant, that was just like the cherry on top of the cake. It was like, that is me. That's why I am the way I am. So astrology brought back some meaning into my life. Astrology helps answer the why we are the way we are, why we go through the cycles we go through. And this is an amazing antidote to a world that is losing its sense of meaning. And if you've read Viktor Frankl's book, he was a man who was caught in the concentration camps in World War II, and he survived. And he was a psychoanalyst, and he wrote about meaning and how meaning is the thing that keeps us alive at the end of the day. And if we don't have a life full of meaning or purpose, we are barely living, because the real life is the spirit within us, and that spirit is fueled by meaning. So I made a promise that day when I learned how to read my birth chart that I would help others who were also wanting to know themselves, so that I could serve them in the way that I was served with astrology and share that same value that I got from astrology. Okay, so I became a full-time astrologer and counselor right around 2017. That was the time I was traveling. I needed to make money. I knew that I loved astrology. So I started charging for readings for $1. For $1, you could buy a 5-page report written by me, because I'm also a writer. And it was very uncomfortable for me to charge money. So I started with $1. After that, it grew to $5, then to $10, then to $25. Now I'm charging well over that for an hour and a half of my time. And I also incorporated the counseling aspect, because I've always been a good listener, and I'm good at mirroring back what I receive to help you see yourself. That's really the value of counseling, is you can go to a therapist and they'll mirror back to you what you're saying, where you're at in life, so that you can see yourself. Everybody is an amazing mirror for us in that way. And in a counseling setting, it's a focused mirror for you to start to understand and unravel who you are, why these things are happening. And it brings you back to yourself. I experienced a spiritual transformation in spring of 2020, which, to just shorten that, I forgave my parents. I realized I had this anger inside, and I always struggled with it because I wanted to be patient for people. I love people, but there was something in me that would cause me to be impatient, frustrated, and angry at times with my fellow human beings. I always hated that part of me. I realized I was a judgmental person. I was judging my father and my mother, and I needed to forgive them, because whoever you judge, you'll be judged in the same way that you are judging, because the world is a mirror. So I was I was judging myself because I was judging them, and I'm no better than they are. So I realized that. And I went and I apologized for judging them. And I found out that's how you forgive. So forgiveness isn't, hey, you're wrong, but I forgive you. It's acknowledging the wrong of the other person, but it's really realizing that I was wrong. I'm the one who's wrong for judging. They can't help themselves at all. If they could, they would. In the same way, I can't help myself. So I forgave them. And then what happened was God took that anger away from me. And I haven't been angry one time since that day that I forgave. And I think that's a miracle, because anger would be something I would just watch happen inside of me. And now I'm just continuing to watch and observe that it's not there anymore. I don't have that inner conflict. So that simply happened because I realized I was judging, and then I apologized for that, and I forgave them verbally. So I encourage people to do that so they can forgive their parents, because that, what we learned from psychology, that's where a lot of the root issues stem from in our troubles in our relationships. I've noticed my relationship to others has completely changed now. All the dynamics of my relationships have changed because I have changed. And I've noticed things around me and people around me start to get better and better too, ever since I've become better in that way. And it's an unfolding thing. It's not anything I feel like I can take credit for at all. I was lucky enough to find a teacher who told me how to forgive. So I also incorporate that into my practice too, to help people overcome past karma, because the karma is held in place through the anger, through the emotional attachments. And those attachments stay in place because we're judging on some level. So we're being judged. And it's not a punishment, it's a universal law. I want to make sure people know that virtues and vices are, it's not about, you don't want to be virtuous so that you avoid punishment. It's not about that. It's that the virtue itself, doing what you can see is right, protects your soul. It's a form of protection or armor. So I encourage people to be their best selves and to do what they can see is right, not because it makes you a good person, but because it will actually protect you from disintegration, from your soul dissolving. Okay. Because vices tend to, or you know, to things that are the opposite of virtue, tend to destroy ourselves. So yeah, the planets deal with moral things, and moral from the stance of what creates life and what promotes destruction. And it's a purely universal law sort of experience. It's not this religious thing we've been taught of like, you'll have to be a good person, otherwise you'll be punished in hell sort of thing. So I've also discovered some amazing insights around that. My sole mission is to help others reconnect to their heart, because my heart is the source of my peace. I love my heart so much. I listen to it even more than I listen to my brain or my mind, or at least I try to. That's my daily practice, because the heart has so much wisdom and intuition. And the thing is, in your heart is the seed of who you truly are, which is your ideal conception of yourself, the ideal self-conception. And you know it's right when it feels like release, when it feels like you can relax, when it feels like it's authentic to who you are. Any tension or frustration, that tension is an indication that you're not in alignment with the truth of who you are. And so it's all good news. It's all good stuff to take into account, because it's all information. So if you notice tension around your self-concept, that's how you know you have a false concept of self. And then the work is to work with awareness. Awareness is the prime materia, the prime material with which we want to work. And it's so simple that most of us miss this. From your observation or your awareness, then you can start to see what your beliefs are. And once you can start to modify those and let false beliefs go and start to embrace newer and truer beliefs, that's when you start to build your self-concept. That's when you really start to customize or create who you are on earth. And the guide for this is the heart, is the intuition of your heart. What guides us away from that is the chatter of the brain or the mind. So astrology actually maps this all out and shows us this, and it's pretty incredible through the symbolism of like Mercury, which is the planet of the mind, and all this good stuff. So I wanted to point out something that's very, very interesting here. Did you know that my favorite psychologist, Carl Gustav Jung, he was one of the eminent forefathers of modern psychology, and he wrote a library of books all on his own. Did you know he had a lifelong interest in astrology? Jung actually believed that astrology could provide symbolic insight into the workings of the human psyche. And he always kind of kept this a secret. But all throughout his career, he was always looking into astrology. He would take down the birth charts of his clients so he can understand them better and help them work through the unconscious mind. He viewed astrology as a symbolic language of archetypes. All right. And so this is key. Archetypes, which are the formative principles and patterns in the depths of the unconscious mind. So that's what archetypes are. That's what we're dealing with today as we look at these symbols of astrology. I want you to understand these are the formative principles. They're the things that lie behind creation that then create all the different varieties that we see in creation. It comes from these 12 archetypal patterns. Okay, we have 12 cranial nerves, 12 knights of the round table, 12 tribes of Israel, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. Because we live in a universe of archetypes. So there are some main ingredients, you could say. When we see that with matter, with the material realm, you know, it comes down to very simple components of the chemical structure of things. But we also have that in consciousness, because what we learn from astrology is that as above, so below. So just as there are certain ingredients, you know, that compose the material realm, there are certain ingredients that compose our psyche as well, the consciousness realm or the spiritual realm. Here's an amazing quote by Carl Jung. Astrology is the sum of all the psychological knowledge of antiquity. Okay. So there he is basically saying what I'm going to show you here today. Astrology is the sum of all the psychological knowledge of antiquity. Okay. So we're learning astrology mainly so that we can start to look at the birth chart. That's where the meat and potatoes is of this thing. And there are many ways to use the birth chart, but I'll give you three main ways. The first one is for self-knowledge, understanding your character traits, decoding meaningful events in your life, tracking your different cycles of growth, and you start to see what the big picture of your life is. And that's an amazing thing to do. Carl Jung began to ask, what is the myth that my client is living? And myth is the story of the individual. So he would ask himself, what myth am I living? We're all living a myth, and this myth is reflected in mythology. And it's like Joseph Campbell's work as well, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. All of us are the hero of our own myth. And so as we learn what the myth is, which you can really start to see when you track the progressions and the whole cycles of your entire life. I mean, I'm so excited for my 80s, because in my 80s, that's when my stuff starts to progress into Scorpio. And it's just such an exciting thing to be alive, to be born, to grow old, and then to die. It's such an amazing adventure. And astrology really helps you piece that whole picture together so you can appreciate what we're doing here on Earth and even the temporality of it. And not that I intend to go anywhere. I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to be here for forever, for eternity. But that's just where I live in my head. I intend to be immortal here on Earth, or at least for as long as God wants me here. But hey, I'm also embracing the thing of death. George says on Earth, yes, absolutely. I'm not going nowhere. But if this body does die and I move on, my mindset around that is I do not intend to reincarnate. That's one of my goals here. I'm not coming back and being recycled into this system. This is my last go. I really want to learn what it takes so that I can continue on this path, because that's maybe another lecture for another day. But yeah, I'm not trying to get recycled and reincarnate and get my memory wiped again and then have to do it all over again. So much of the system and the society and the architects of the society have patterned things so that we can be their energy source. And that's happening not just on a physical level, but on a soul level as well. So, yeah. All right. Number 2 way you can use the birth chart is for others. You can help others find clarity or to locate powerful dates for them to do things. You can help others get confirmation or affirmation about if they're having doubt or if they're wondering who they are, what their purpose is here on earth. And you can also help others find, partnership and compatibility and help see what the lessons are, the spiritual lessons, in their relationships. So there's a lot of ways you can serve others. Another way that's not often talked about, and that is still, we have a lot of discovery to make around, is for the community. You can use the birth chart for the community, for your local community. You can help give general horoscopes for the collective, of course, but you can also help businesses know when to start or when to build or when to sign contracts. That obviously would take a high level astrologer to do, but astrologers have always been appointed to the royal courts, and they help presidents and they help world leaders to this day. And the Pope, of course, always has his own personal astrologer to decide the coronation dates. And so astrologers have always been highly valued by the most royal and high of any society ever. All right. So what's the best way to use the birth chart? If you ask me, I would tell you. And let me give you a hint. It's quite selfish. The best way to use the birth chart is for self-improvement, as far as I can see. Because the truth is, your chart is the ultimate mirror. It's the ultimate self-reflection tool to begin understanding your inner self. Just as a mirror helps you see, all right, do I have anything on my face, anything in my teeth? Your birth chart helps you see when you're overreacting, when you are out of alignment with your true soul's intent here, what you intended to do here on earth as a soul. Okay. It's about understanding your inner self and how to manage your energies, how to know what makes you tick, how to capitalize on your natural strengths and talents and work productively upon your innate weaknesses. I can tell you all my weaknesses, not just because I've experienced them, but because of what my birth chart clearly tells you about what my weaknesses are in life. And there's an amazing security of self that comes from owning your weaknesses and being able to accept them and bring awareness to them. I think the birth chart is so invaluable in this. So you're the only person you can change on this planet. You are the only one that you can change. The better you become, the more you influence all those around you to become better. All right. We live in a spiritual reality. All of our problems have their source in spiritual things. It's not an emotional health thing. It's not a mental health thing. And it's not in your physical body. All ailments have their source in the spiritual realm. And you can disagree if you want, but I don't care what anybody says. I've seen that the source is in the spirit. As we work with the spiritual nature and heal the spirit, it trickles down to make your mind, your mental health better, which trickles down to make your emotional health better, which trickles down typically to make the body better and more healthy. So I like dealing with causes, and the cause, I believe, is always spiritual. All right, there's a few different ways you can use the birth chart for yourself, and we could explore them now. And just so you know, when we can truly be ourselves, which the birth chart helps us to see what that is, with no resistance, anger, or guilt, we can just be ourselves without any of that tension. We can return to our natural state of being, which is love. So our natural state of being is equilibrium. It's harmony. It's balance. What is unnatural is disharmony, war, anger, guilt, tension, all this stuff. It's unnatural. It's not evil. It's not bad, but it's helping us see where we're out of balance. And the balance or the love is the natural state. And there are, again, several ways to use the chart for yourself. You can understand yourself better, personality analysis, innate characteristics, soul traits. You can understand what's going on in your relationships, if you're compatible with this person, in what ways you're not compatible, what your soul contracts are, how you're helping each other out spiritually in your life, what you need to learn. Typically, it's about Moon and Pluto stuff, which is about learning to let go or to stop seeking love outside of you. And the other person is typically helping you to do that, to learn how to let go through the physical embodiment of that relationship. Very, very helpful for learning karmic lessons here. We can also understand the purpose of certain events, the lessons, the significance of their timing and the transits. If you get in a car crash and you have Mars right on top of your, Mars is transiting your moon, maybe you have certain emotional things happening at the time where you are rushing things, where you're not really content in yourself. The transits will help you see why certain accidents happened, when they happened, and what it's related to, sort of what's going on under the hood, you could say. All right. We can use the chart to know what season of life we're in, because there's a season for all things. There's a season to grow. There's a season to rest. There's a season to push. There's a season to pull. There's a season to plant. There's a season to harvest. There's a season to cry, to get into our feelings. There's a season to be logical and to get into our rationality. And the progressed chart and the transits show what season you're in. So I'm very happy to know what season I am currently in. It's just very helpful. And then within that, there's many seasons, of course. So this is what astrology helps us do. We can also understand the meaning of our early life experiences. For example, childhood traumas, what was taking place there, what we were meant to learn, how we could let go of it. And when you have a context for these sorts of confusing events, it just really helps you find inner stability about it. A lot of our insecurity just comes from not knowing ourselves fully, because what we don't know about, we can't speak on confidently. And we certainly can't dive into it and show it and express it in any sort of confident way, because we don't know what we're saying. We don't know, if you don't know the subject, it's very hard to teach it, isn't it? It's hard to have confidence about it. So this universe, guys, and astrology basically is a lesson of love. At least that's how I see it through my Leo lens of perception. And this lesson of love is exemplified through the interplay of our sun and moon, the two lights in the sky. One rules the night, one rules the day. One can be seen at night or in the day, but the sun, and that's the moon, but the sun can only be seen during the day. And yet it is the absence of the sun which conditions the night. That's what the night is. So the night and the day both really depend on the sun. The sun is the key player in this drama. The sun is a constant, consistent, central source of love. And we could call it logical love. It's of the masculine nature. The divine masculine manifests through nature as straight lines, which are like the rays of the sun. They go straight. It's very linear, logical processing. That's sort of the masculine drive in nature. Masculine and feminine are not so cut and dry. There's feminine traits of masculinity. There's masculine traits of femininity, and they interweave and they interweave. So it's good to stay flexible around these concepts and allow the wisdom within to be revealed inwardly to you as I explain these things. Okay. Then we have the moon. That's emotional or personal love. It's a constant change. Just as the sun is constant, the moon is constant change, always changing. It's adaptable and it reflects this light of the sun. It nurtures, but it doesn't give life of itself. So the masculine principle is the seed. The moon, or the feminine principle, is the receptive, receiving, reflecting principle, which proliferates life. Okay. And it's thanks to these two, the sun and moon, we need both, that we have this world as it is right now. Okay. So the sun stands for individuality, the spirit. It's the positive end of the pole. It's electric, masculine. It's about giving, and it's about will. Deidre says, anyway, you can slow on the slides a tiny bit. I can't really slow down because we got to get, we don't want this to be 3 hours, I don't think. But if you guys want the slides, you can keep the slides. Yeah, I'll send you a copy of all the slides. Plus you get the recording of this video and you can pause and take notes as you like. All right. But yeah, if I'm moving too fast for you to take notes, I'm sorry. You'll get a chance to take notes later. Whoopsies. Okay. So the moon is the personality. It is about the soul rather than the spirit. The soul is much more emotional and receptive in its nature. That's why music is soulful. But the spirit is this, it's more associated with this logic, which is common sense, which is when you internally know if something is off or if it's on, if it's right or if it's wrong. That comes from the intuition of the heart. So the heart corresponds to the sun, The sun rules Leo, the sign, which is ruled by the sun. So the sun and the heart have a unity there. Okay. Personality is ruled by the moon, which is the mask that we wear. The word persona, that root word, which is Latin, it means mask. So it's a masking, which we need to help reveal the soul. It's negative. It's on the negative end of the pole. So it's receptive, magnetic, it's feminine. It's about form rather than life. And it's about receiving rather than giving. And it's about understanding rather than will. Okay. But the integration of both of these, your inner masculine and your inner feminine, leads to truth, which is so cool. Right. All signs and planets have a light and dark side of them. We'll get to that when we deal with the planets. Here's an amazing quote by Saint Germain. I recommend his books on alchemy. Recognize that light is an energy substance universally manifesting on Earth, thanks to the sun center of being, the focal point of the Christ in the solar system. Okay, so there's so many simple things about this reality that we tend to just pass by without giving it another thought throughout the whole course of our life. And I invite you to really contemplate what that glowing bright orb is in the sky that you can't look at directly. What is that really about? And just your contemplation of this will not be a waste. I mean, these are just very simple things, but like contemplating the sun can lead you to some amazing places in your inner psyche. Okay, I'm sorry, this slide is kind of blurry, but this is what we're dealing with the zodiac. The zodiac is really called the ecliptic, which is simply the path of the sun and the planets. So the sun, the moon, and all the planets go along this path of the ecliptic. And when they cut the equator here, here's the equator of the Earth. When it cuts that equator point in its yearly path, that's when we hit spring. That's the first day of spring equinox, which means we're now experiencing life in the northern hemisphere, warmth and new life. Here we have the summer solstice when the sun reaches its northernmost point of declination, and then it starts to set. And once it hits this point on the other side of the equator, that's when we have fall. When the sun goes down here, and at the southernmost point, that is the Tropic of Capricorn. It hits Capricorn there, and then we have winter. And it climbs back up until it hits spring once again. I want you guys to know that the signs and the constellations are not the same. There are constellations that have the same name as the signs, but they're not the same. At certain points of the Earth's evolution, the signs and the constellations, correspond. They line up. Let me try and show you this. So this is where the sun appears here on May 21st, okay? So here's the Earth. This is where the sun appears on May 21st. So you have the constellations. Just think of that as a backdrop, okay? You could think of the constellations or the star patterns as the background, but what the signs actually are, let me see if I can show you a better picture. The signs are actually just these segments in the sky, 30-degree segments, which map out where we are in the seasonal path of the sun. Tropical astrology has always been about the seasons. It's never been about the constellations. If you want to get more into the constellations, that would be more of Vedic or Eastern astrology, which works. And when I say it works, I mean, it works for what they use it for. Interpretation of things. All systems are pretty valuable, but the most accurate system is this one here because it's about the seasons. And the seasons are what affect what happens here on Earth. That's what we can really measure is the seasonal changes. We can't, at least not that I know of, we can't quite measure what the stars are doing or the constellations are doing to the Earth, but we know exactly what the seasons do to the Earth. It's very measurable. And you are colored by the season in which you were born. So tropical astrology really just deals with the seasons. All right, here's another view of the ecliptic here. It's this snake-like spiral wavy pattern. Okay, and it does look like a sine wave. So it is a wave, but a wave is from another point of view, it's a spiral. And so the zodiac is this spiral of growth that we go through. Okay. Again, here's the spring signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, summer solstice. And then the sun starts to go down. So the height of the sun is June 21st. That's the most mature sun. It's the peak of its life. And it starts to go down here, and Cancer, Leo, Virgo. Libra is the scales. It's the balance point. So this is where, once again, the sun hits that equator, but now the sun is dying. So it enters the underworld here in these last 6 signs. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius form the fall. It's literally the fall of the sun. Then at the bottom, December 21st, the sun is dead for 3 days. And then the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, the sun rises again on the 25th. This is the birth of the Christ. Okay. Christianity it's a regurgitation of a sun worship religion. And I love Christianity. It's one of the best religions on earth. It's done, evil people have used it to do some evil things. I can definitely agree with you on that. But Christianity is one of the few religions that talks about forgiveness as a way to purge the soul, to be freed. So for that reason, I love Christianity, and I wear the name Christian proudly. I have no shame about it, because I realize that all the evil done on earth is done by evil people. It's done in the name of religions at times, but the religion itself isn't evil. All religions are here to serve humanity, to help us enlighten ourselves and find the truth. So there was a time in my life where I was very angry about religion until I learned astrology. And then I learned all religions have their root in astrology, and all religions are an attempt at truth, at returning to truth. So we can be mad at religions all we want. It's like being mad at machetes, because some evil people have used machetes to do some really bad things, to murder others. So why would we be mad at machetes? Machetes are very useful, just like religion is very useful. Wars have been fought with machetes. Wars have been fought in the name of religion, but we got to be careful not to discredit an entire toolbox of amazing tools that are here to help us just because some evil people used it for evil. You know what I'm saying? So here's the sine wave. This is a long-term history. These signs correspond to long cycles. Yes, thousands of years. And we can trace back in these cycles, we can see that, like, during the age of the ram, they were actually worshiping a ram. And in the age of the bull, they were worshiping the bull. It's very interesting. And then in these ages, like, for example, in the age of the bull, you'll often see the scorpion hidden within the symbolism of the bull. And that's because the opposite sign of Taurus, the bull, is the scorpion, the Scorpio. So it's a very interesting realm of study. It's beyond the scope of this presentation, but just so you know, the end of it, the age of Pisces is said to be the time when Christ will return. The Christ came, the master Jesus came during the age of Pisces. Every age has its own prophet. He was the age of the sign of Pisces, and now we're in the age of Aquarius. So things are changing here now, and we're approaching the golden ages. So these down here were the dark ages, where we forgot our origins, we forgot our spiritual origins, and we're returning to create heaven on earth here. So we are in the age of Aquarius now. Yeah. And some people will contest that, but in all the research I've seen, we are 100% absolutely in the age of Aquarius. Okay. So one complete cycle equals one precession of the equinoxes, approximately 25,000 years. The precession of the equinoxes, this is very key to grasp. If you can grasp this, this is actually pretty advanced, but it's also very rudimental. This is something you need to understand. The precession of the equinox is this point. Whenever we hit the vernal equinox, this point every year, this point along the backdrop of the constellations, that vernal equinox point, we see a shift with the constellations. Okay. So the vernal equinox is always anytime the sun on the ecliptic cuts that point of the equator. But every year, by a very slight fraction of a degree, that constellation shifts. And so guess what has happened is now the constellation of The constellation of Aries actually used to line up with the sign Aries a couple thousands of years ago. Okay. So that's why people say, oh, you're not actually an Aries. You're actually what is it? A Pisces, or I can't remember if it's gone backwards or forwards. Pretty sure it's gone backwards, but that's the constellation that has shifted because of the precession of the equinoxes, and it shifts backwards. Okay. So some people say you're not actually an Aries. If you were born March 25th, you're actually Pisces. But no, you're still an Aries. You'll always be an Aries because tropical astrology deals with the tropics, the seasons. Okay. So the precession of the equinoxes is when that point on the vernal equinox, after 25,000 years, it will do a complete revolution. So that's how we know what age we're in, is based on whatever sign or constellation is hitting that point. Okay. It's how we measure the long-term ages with the precession of the equinoxes. Why is it shifting backwards? It's shifting backwards because not only is that incredibly symbolic, the reversal of the wheel has to do with a different form of growth that we're going through. It has to do with the evolution of our consciousness, whereas the wheel moving forward has to do with the evolution of the physical, right? We get older as time goes on, but the reversal of the wheel symbolizes a different pathway of growth, a growth of consciousness. Okay, so that which is above is like that which is below. That which is below is like to that which is above. This is the principle of correspondence. The macrocosm, the very large, the totality, and the microcosm, you and your body, the very small, the individual units which comprise the whole, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic, it's self-similar across all scales. If you take one of your little tiny cells, and out of the 10 trillion cells that you have in your body, that cell is like a little individual. It takes in food, it releases waste, it has a digestion of sorts, it thinks for itself in many ways. That cell is a reflection of you. And your body is the macrocosm to that one tiny little cell, of which it's just a piece of it. If you take one little drop out of the ocean, that drop is a holographic reflection of the entire ocean. Okay, so that's what we live in. We live in a holographic thing here, which is why it's so helpful to forgive and overcome resentment, because that way you're not split against your own self. Everybody is reflecting back you to you, and you're reflecting them back to them, because we're all one. So here's a quote by Dane Rudyard, one of my favorite thinkers and astrologers and composers. The goal of astrology is the alchemy of personality. It's to transform chaos into cosmos, collective human nature into individual and creative personality. Okay, it's all about knowing ourselves. All right, here's another interesting quote by Saint Germain. The sincere alchemist knows that the vast intelligence that created all that is expands mighty wings of light over all the cosmos. As above in the macrocosm, so below in the microcosm, in the miniaturized world of appearance, is this intelligence individualized. So as you start to know yourself, then you'll know God, is what he's saying basically. The watchful care of God ever manifests to his wondrous purposes as a guardian presence who seeks not the defilement, but the glorious fulfillment of each person in whom dwells the flame of almighty ever-present life. I love Saint Germain's books because it's so poetic, and it's like a meditation as you're reading it. It's like a contemplation on divine things. I mean, it's such a good way of putting words to it. So-called physical death does not represent the end of being. It merely divides eternal life into compartments of identity and experience, whereby expansion and opportunity can be utilized to the fullest, and each outworn mold discarded. Forgotten fragments can be pieced together by the seeker and woven strands, strand by strand, into a tapestry of such beauty as to thrill the beholder with a sense of gratitude for the perfection and glory present in each day of eternity. Maybe I just love this because I'm a Leo. It's just so larger than life and so magnificent. Another quote by Saint Germain: the high road, as distinguished from the low road, is the way of the alchemist, whose heart is in the shining glory all the day and all the way, that his pilgrim feet walk the dusty ways of man. Transmuting, and transmuting that dust into purest radiance. So the dust is your current experience. It's being cussed out by somebody at a grocery store. And you take that and you turn that dust into love. And that's what the alchemist does. The alchemist doesn't say, look what's happening to me. How dare this person say that to me? The alchemist says, I'm going to take this and I'm going to use this to make my soul better by feeling the pain of the ego. And I'm going to realize that I can release that pain and realize that this person is suffering. That's the only reason they're cussing me out, is because they are suffering inside. And then you turn it into love, and you take the dust of your experience and you transmute it into radiant gold. And that's a power that you have. That's a power that everyone else has. And we just have to claim that power and remember that we have it. It's not easy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. George says, anyone else's audio lagging? Hopefully our audio is okay. You can drop out and then drop back in, George, if it is just you. If anybody else is having issues, just let me know. Okay, so then we're going to get into the elements, but we'll get into that after. So we'll stop there. Okay. So others are saying they're having trouble as well with the audio. Hopefully things get better now that I'm not sharing my screen. We'll see. Is the audio still off, you guys, or are we okay? Check 1 2 1 2 check. Good now? Okay, that's good. Okay. I apologize, guys. In the recording, the video should be smoother. The audio should be more crisp as well. So that's good news. All right, so now's the time where I'd love for you to pull out your notebook. Take out your notebook and your pen and get ready to follow along with me here. So let me adjust this. All right. We're going to go like this. Boom. Whoa. I'm gonna drop the phone. Yeah. This is the fun part. This is the fun part. You can even see me in the reflection there. It's pretty cool. All right, so let's see how we're doing. Boom. Okay. All right. So that should be right side up for you there. Yes, it looks like it is. That's good. All right. Everybody can hear me okay? Everybody can see this all right? Okay, good. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to introduce you guys to the symbols of astrology. Like I said, these symbols are inherent to your consciousness. All right. Language is just a mass of symbols that we all agree upon. We all agree upon their meanings, right? Like a word is just made up of symbols. That's a symbol. And even the ancient T has its own meaning that we derive our T from in English. So it's very interesting. So these symbols are symbols of consciousness. Like Carl Jung said, they're the formative principles. So the first symbol that I would like for you to contemplate on, and actually if you just want to take a deep breath here with me and sort of get into a relaxed state and attune to your heart, if you would. So just go ahead and take a deep breath deep into the bottom of your belly, at the bottom of your diaphragm, as deep as it can. And fill that space, let it go all the way up to the throat. Hold it there for a minute and then release that breath and let it flow out your mouth. Go ahead and take one more deep breath in through your nose, deep into the belly. Hold it there at the top. Take your time and release it out the mouth. And go ahead and take another deep breath on your own, a little more relaxed, and just start to become aware of your awareness. All right, you're tracing your awareness back to its source, which is your heart. So just become the observer. All right, so now you've cleared your mind a bit, you've attuned to the heart, which means attuned means you're at one with it, you're listening to the heart. Okay, so our first symbol we're going to look at today, go ahead and just write this at the top corner, because this is not related to, well, this is related to the signs and the planets, but these are just some separate symbols I want you to understand. So the first symbol is going to be the circle. Hooray. Terrible circle, right? But you know what makes the circle a little easier is to break it up into 4 quadrants. So you could even just like do a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, and a dot there. And it's much easier to draw a circle if you got the 4 quadrants. So you just focus on connecting that corner to that corner to that corner, and boom. You get what I'm saying? So you can break it up into quadrants to make it easier to draw the circle. It's much easier if you have it in 4s. So the circle symbolizes spirit. It's unity, but it's incomprehensible where the start of the circle is and where the end is. It's infinite and eternal. And the circle taken alone symbolizes the infinite spirit, the spirit of life, which is whole, which is one, and which is eternal. Then once we add a point to it, this is the symbol of the sun in astrology. And that point symbolizes an individualized center. So the circle alone is silence. What the point is sound. So sound is emerging out of silence. Light is emerging out of darkness. There's a point of manifestation. Something is manifesting. It's the seed in the center. It is something being born out of nothing. And even, the circle is 0, which represents nothing. So this is a symbol which communicates to the human mind that God is something you cannot know. You can't fully comprehend God because God is infinite. And this infinite source is in you. It's within you. It's all around you. It's truly infinite. And it's a good thing because, that's a God that we can really, truly rely on because it's not limited in any way. Our creator, which is perfect love. Okay. So the next symbol I'd like for you to be aware of is another thing we can do with this circle. So we got a circle. And now the next symbol you need to know is this one here, where we divide it by a vertical line. So here now, the eternal spirit has a duality within its unity. There's a potential duality. And the vertical line represents, so it represents the peak of the day. Like when the sun is up here, right? Sun is shining, that's noon. That is noontime. When the sun's down here on the bottom, that's midnight, right? So this has to do with power. The vertical line has to do with power. In the birth chart, this upper section of the chart has to do with your profession, your public stance in the world. And the bottom represents your private life, your home, your privacy, what you do when no one's looking. And that has to do with power. When you rest at night, you are regaining power. When you're out in the world doing your work, you are expressing and experiencing power. Okay? So take note of just contemplate the symbol of how this vertical line has to do with, on one end, there's complete manifestation. There's high noon. On the other end, there is nothing. It's dark. Okay. So that's one duality you need to know. The next one is we're going to draw another circle. And this time we're going to cut it horizontally. George says, wow, that cleared up a lot of thinking in accordance with the chart. Nice. Yeah, that's what this is for. This is what I want to help you with. All right, so next we cut it horizontally. Now contemplate this. When the sun is here on the east, this is the eastern part of the chart. So you got the sun here. Let's just imagine that's the sunrise, okay? Then over here, the sun is setting, isn't it? So what we have here is both in the morning and in the evening, we still have what? We still have daylight. We can still see. We still have daylight. So this symbolizes self and other. This horizontal line here divides it with the top and a bottom. And this is the axis of selfhood and relatedness. Okay, self and other. So in the chart, this is where the ascendant would be, right over here. Okay, this is the ascendant, AC, or rising sign. Shows what sign was rising at your birth. Over here would be the DC, which is funny, AC/DC, but you know, like electrical currents. But the descendant shows sorry, I just want to make sure we're still recording. Shows others, shows how you perceive others. So this has to do with consciousness. The horizontal line has to do with consciousness. So then, all right, so we understand the vertical line is power. The horizontal line is consciousness, aware of self and other. The vertical line is power, once again, because at midnight, when you're sleeping, there is no awareness. You are unconscious while you sleep. At the height of noon, you are the most conscious. You're the most awake, and life is at its peak. Horizontal line is consciousness, like just like we thought about when it's morning and when it's evening, there's still light out. So this axis has to do with awareness or consciousness. Okay. George says, does this have anything to do with north and south nodes? It's related. Yeah, all dualities are related to these. These are basically you could think of what I'm showing you now is like the prime symbols of unity and duality. Okay, so now the next symbol you can write down is this one, and this is the cross. Okay, so in symbology, we've got the circle that represents spirit. The cross represents matter. And another one we're going to come to is the crescent, represents the soul. Okay, and this crescent is inherent in this symbol. This is where the crescent then gets derived from. So the soul has to do with, the crescent has to do with soul. It's also somewhat related to mind, as you'll see with Mercury. But the cross represents matter, okay? It also represents motion. So now we have something in motion going on. All right. I'm going to read you something here. So where is it? Okay. Here it is. Okay, so when the second diameter divides the first at right angles, the cross is formed within the circle. This is a familiar symbol of very wide application, both in astrology and elsewhere. It gives the ground plan of the ordinary horoscope, showing the horizontal line of the horizon running from the ascendant on the east to the descendant on the west, and the vertical line of the meridian from zenith to nadir. It implies complete manifestation, the cross. and incessant activity. Okay, because these 4 points have to do with motion now. All right, so there's incessant activity because it cannot be formed until self and not self have each become polarized, active and passive, positive and negative, each acting upon the other, and each reacted upon by the other. This action and reaction between the two has various consequences and implications. Firstly, it subdivides the two halves into quarters. Secondly, it implies unceasing activity, for if the action and reaction were to stop, the quadrants would disappear and nothing would be left but the two semicircles of the previous symbol. Okay, the quadrants only existing so long as activity continues. So this cross represents matter, but what we know about matter is it's always vibrating, always moving. Nothing is still in this universe. Even when it looks still, if you zoom in, you'll see it's vibrating very rapidly. Everything is in constant motion here in the physical universe, okay? So thirdly, it implies a current of influence passing round the circle, following the direction of the action and reaction, and setting the circle itself spinning around on its axis, just as does the Earth. This is usually represented by the familiar symbol of the swastika, a cross that is supposed to be whirling around rapidly. Whoops. Okay. This symbol, we all know, or we've seen this before. This is an ancient astrological symbol. And when the lines go this way, it has to do with the rotation of the Earth. When the lines go the other way, it has to do with the apparent rotation of the apparent movement of the sun. Okay, so this symbol goes very deep, guys. And just as the cross has to do with matter, it actually relates to the root chakra. So I'm going to keep reading from this book. This book was my Bible for a very long time. It's called Esoteric Astrology by Alan Leo. I highly recommend you get this book. If you're interested in this symbology, this is one of the best books you can get for astrology. Okay. These small end pieces are usually drawn as short straight lines at right angles to the arms, but this is obviously incorrect. If the cross were really set spinning, it would describe a circle, and the trail would be circular, the end pieces being small arcs of a circle, not straight lines. In fact, this symbol is the same as the last, the cross within the circle, but portions of the circumference of the circle have been omitted. Its application is very extensive. It may signify the whirling motion of atoms, both as vortices in ether and as spiral currents around a central axis. And on a greater scale, it represents the axial rotation of the Earth, closely analogous to that of an atom. It indicates the spiral movement of electricity around a magnetic axis, the serpentine motion of the fiery electric life power called Kundalini, and the whirling of the chakrams or force centers in the etheric counterpart of the physical body. It stands for one of these centers in particular, which is described as follows. This is from the Theosophist. The first center at the base of the spine so arranges its undulations as to give the effect of its being divided into quadrants with hollows between them. So if you're clairvoyant, you could see chakras, you would see this. You would see something that looks like this at the base of the spine. This is what the root chakra looks like. That's why it has 4 petals in, the Eastern philosophy tradition. The root chakra is a cross. It's got 4 petals, the 4-petaled lotus. All right. It's got the effect of its being divided into quadrants with hollows between them. This makes it seem as though marked with the sign of the cross. And for that reason, the cross is often used to symbolize this center. And sometimes a flaming cross is used to indicate the serpent fire which resides within it. Okay. When a wheel, while turning around, advances in the line of its axis, it describes not a circle, but a spiral. In all these cases, the swastika indicates some sort of spirally moving force working in matter, molding matter and setting it in motion from the globe down to the atom. In man, this cross stands for body, as distinguished from the circle, which is spirit, and the semicircle, which is soul. Okay? So this is something to contemplate, the fact that we are crucified here in the material plane, nailed to a cross. That cross is the root chakra, the lowest form of energy, which vibrates the slowest, and it has to do with this physicality. Okay? So ultimately, these truths are going to be experienced, not expressed, because words like nature, half reveal and half conceal the truth within. So if you're wondering, like, why don't you just say it? Or there's like, could be a lot of people wondering these days, like, when is somebody just going to come out and say what it is, like how to do life, or like what the biggest secret is and all that. It's the biggest secret is can't be put into words. It'll be discovered within you, and the truth is within you, and it will be an ineffable peace. It'll just be kind of like a knowing, and you'll just know that there'll be no way to really describe it. But as we get closer and closer to truth, the closer we get to peace. It's an experience is peace, right? That's why they say the truth will set you free. Okay, now here's the fun part, guys. I hope you're ready for this. All right, here we go. So now, first thing we're going to do, we're just going to write out the symbols of the zodiac together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw the circle of the zodiac, and we're going to fill those in with all the symbols of the zodiac. This is going to cause you to memorize the zodiac. And yeah, you won't forget it. At least I don't think you will. Like, there's no way I could forget my numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So in the same way, it seems like there's no way I could forget Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. It'll just roll off the tongue. It'll just be so familiar to you. So first, we're going to start off with the first sign. Okay. The first sign. And if you want to, because this will help also if you associate a number with it. So we're going to go number 1, if you want to do that. Number 1 is Aries. So how I draw this is I start here and I go down. That's the first ram's horn. And here's the second ram's horn. Boom, that's Aries. So consciousness springs forth and it divides. The zodiac is going to tell us a story about our psyche and how it comes into manifestation from unity, from the circle, into duality. And so it can experience itself and experience multiplicity in creation. All right. So this is a fire sign. It's a cardinal sign. I'll explain more about what that means later. But just so you know, this is the first sign, and it has to do with a fountain of consciousness, or the spring of grass. This is the first sign of spring, after all. Okay, a fountain, grass blades, ram's horns, and the face. This sign rules the face. Okay, every sign rules a different part of the body. We'll get into that as we later as we go on too. All right, ready for number 2? Number 2 is Taurus. So we're going to do a crescent here. This is the cup. It's a very receptive sign. It's a very earthy sign. So it's got an open-faced cup there to receive. And here is the big belly that it goes into. Taurus is a sign of food. It's a sign of foundations. It's an earth sign. We notice this is also a pictorial image or a glyph of a bull. This is the head of the bull. This is also the chin. And there's the torso, and the neck would be right about there, because this sign rules the neck and the throat. All right. And so, yeah, it's about starting. So we burst forth in Aries, consciousness arises, and then we start to receive, so we can understand how to build. And Taurus just helps with, to curve that spiral so that we can stabilize this dynamic consciousness. Yes, embodiment. Absolutely. All right. So now we're coming to sign number 3, third sign. Let's actually give ourselves a little more room here. Okay. Number 3. Number 3 is Gemini. So basically, we've got the 2 twins. Boom. And boom. 2 more lines. That's Gemini right there. Gemini rules the vocal cords. So these are the vocal cords, the twin pillars. We need 2 of something to create sound. All sound is the result of 2 things hitting each other, creating vibrations through the ethers, through the air. So these represent the vocal cords, duality. This also Gemini rules the arms and hands. Okay. So all this is where duality really starts to take place. This is the first air sign as well. So it's about the mind. So that's the twins. That's Gemini. All right. And we come to number 4. Again, it's very important that you just observe and allow these symbols to work on your consciousness, because these symbols will awaken latent knowledge that you have inside you. I can promise you that. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. These are ancient symbols here, and they are formed the way they're formed for a reason. Okay, next we have Cancer, number 4. Number 4 is Cancer. We got a circle and then a curve, a crescent. We got the same thing over here, another circle and a curve. So what these are crab's claws. These are also the breast, ruled by Cancer. Cancer rules the breast or the chest, which is the home of the heart, which is the next sign, Leo. So Cancer is all about the home. This is the first water sign as well to appear. So it's about taking the duality, the dual experience of Gemini, and curving it inward now. So this is about duality of emotion. And that's what the water signs help us understand. This fire sign, Aries, the first fire sign, is about the birth of consciousness, the fiery, outrushing flame of consciousness or spirit. Then Taurus receives it and grounds it. That's earth, the physicality. Then we've got the mind, which wants to understand. It's got dual ways of understanding things. That duality then becomes the dual experience of emotion, pleasure and pain. All right. Happiness and sadness. That's Cancer. Then we come to the 5th sign. How exciting. This is the best one. I'm just kidding. Again, I just say that because I'm a Leo. All right. So Leo starts with a circle, and then it curves upward like that. And then you got the little lion tail there. That's how you do Leo. This is symbolic of the diaphragm, that cave or the opening right below the heart. And this obviously would represent the spine, then the tail of the spine. Leo does rule the back in the body, or more importantly, the upper back and the heart. This could also represent the heart, the cave of the heart. So that's Leo. This is another fire sign. So here's a little bonus. If you want to do this bonus, you could do F for fire, E for earth. You know what? We got some color coding going on just for you guys. All right. F for fire. That is pink, yo. Whatever. I forgive you, Walmart. E for earth. Okay, that looks green. I mean, blue, but whatever. Then we've got air. Okay. Then we've got, then we got water. Then we have fire once again. Boom. So you're going to notice a pattern here. I forgive you, Walmart. You're going to notice a pattern here. And what you're going to notice is that this entire zodiac is just a pattern. We're using patterns for the symbols, but you're going to see that all the 12 form a complete and whole system. So this pattern that you're going to memorize is fire, earth, air, water. And guess how it's going to go? Fire, earth, air, water. It's going to keep going along that same symbolic path. Okay. So number 6 is, I'm going to need more room. Number 6 is Virgo. Okay. So Virgo is the maiden. That's why we're going to do a little M. M for maiden. Okay. And then she's a virgin, right? So she's crossed her legs there. Boom. That's what that means. It's the crossing. So the M, you know, some say it stands for maiden, but this could also represent a power coil, a coil. This also represents the intestines, some people say, you know, because Virgo does rule the intestines or the stomach, the digestive system in general. All right. So, and then this here just relates to the fact that it's a virgin. And this has to do with the energy going through the coil, and it gets it's closed off, so it's not being released. This is why Virgos tend to overthink. They tend to be hypercritical. They tend to not know what to do with themselves because they got all this energy, and the energy is closed. It's a closed circuit. So it's really about internalizing, analyzing the energy. Just as Leo is extremely bombastic and expressive and magnanimous and over the top, Virgo then curves that energy in to control it, just as all the earth signs do. The earth comes after the fire to help contain it and give it form. So Virgos can be like, you know, every sign is more mature based on the sign it comes after, right? So Virgos still have something of that Leo quality of being able to entertain and be expressive, but they are learning to use it more for service, which is why they'll tend to criticize Leo and be like, you are too crazy. You need to learn how to calm down. And Leos are like, you're too stuck up. You need to learn to relax and let go. That's because we all complement each other. So this is also going to teach us how to appreciate our differences in human beings, which is cool. All right, we're going to come to number 7, which means we're halfway through the 12. So now we come to Libra, which we got a line here, the rising sun there, or the setting sun actually, and another line there, and then just another horizontal line on the bottom. That is Libra. So Libra is the first sign, which is a polar opposite sign. So Libra is the polarity of Aries. You're going to see that when we put this on the circle, right? Another air sign right there. Boom. You know what would be better actually is if I put this underneath. Sorry, you guys are probably so annoyed with me because you're probably having to redo your notes as well, but I'm just going to put it right here. Okay. If you want to just keep going in the line, you can do that. It is just whatever is best for you. We'll leave a little more space for the element. But number 7 is Libra, 7th sign. Okay. And it's an air sign. So we notice that the polarities are going to have fire and air. Air is going to be the polarity of fire. Fire is going to be the polarity of air. All right. Libra rules the kidneys, which are the balance beams in the body. All right. Another thing with the balance here. They balance all the liquids in the body. That's what the kidneys help to do. So the kidneys help us stay in balance with our fluids. And that's Libra. It also rules the center of gravity, which is very interesting, which is about 4 fingers below your belly button. In Chinese philosophy, that's called the Dantian. It's literally the center of balance of your body, right around the hip region. Okay. So we're going to come to the 8th sign now. And the 8th sign is Scorpio. So we've got another M here, or another power coil, if you want to see it that way. And this one has a release. So the arrows in symbology represent releases or directions of energy. So in Scorpio, the energy shoots off, which is why Scorpios can be very intense. Scorpio is the sign that rules the genitals. Okay. Yes, there is a sign that rules the genitals, and it's Scorpio. And Scorpio is about what we keep hidden until we're ready to be really intimate with somebody. It's about raw truth, exposing that truth. And do you know what element this sign is? I know you do because you're so smart. It's water. So water signs are the polarity to earth signs. Okay. More pattern recognition going on here. All right. Scorpio is opposite Taurus because Taurus is about that earthy component, the biological component, and then Scorpio is about the emotional component of sex. Taurus is about fertility, sex for biological reasons, procreation. Scorpio is about sex for pleasure, for the emotional component, for feeling good. Very interesting. Especially when it comes to these polarities, it's very interesting how, you know, Libra is like, okay, yeah, we have a self, we have an identity, an Aries thing, but it's for use for social reasons, for making it beautiful and for creating relationships with other selves. Scorpio's like, yeah, we have the Taurus sexual component, but we can use that for magnifying our expression or amplifying our pleasure or our creativity. So every polarity starts to introduce this other polar opposite component of what that sign represents. All right, opposite Gemini, then in the 9th sign, we have very simple symbol here, Sagittarius, just an arrow. It's just a good old arrow. You got a point there, you got that thing, whatever that's called. That's Sagittarius. All right, and it is a fire sign. Once again, another polarity, air and fire and air, polar opposites. Sagittarius is about philosophy. The way to think about Sagittarius is, okay, you just had an orgasm in Scorpio, right? You just had an intense release of pleasure and connection. And so now you shoot off and you are inspired and you're like, wow, what else is amazing about life? Or how else can I use this energy? Again, the arrow has to do with release of energy. Sagittarius is about philosophy, expansion, religion, higher order, and all these amazing things that can come after you are released from the constraints of desire. Okay. Pretty cool. Number 10, the polar opposite to Cancer is going to be Capricorn. So this is a weird symbol. Basically, we got the tail of a fish. And then we come down here and we've got the kneecap. Boom. Something like that. Yeah, pretty much. There's a couple different ways to draw Capricorn. So I'm going to show you the other way you can do it. But there's no, there's a couple different ways to do it, and none of them are really wrong, but it could be like this. And boom, something like that. The general idea is, you have the circle here. You have a little thing springing off here, the circle here, and then you got the roundedness at the end. And Capricorn does rule the knees. All right. So Capricorn to me, it's one of the weirdest symbols, but again, you just go like this, like that. Okay. Capricorn. Capricorn rules the knees, and it's about the structure of society. The foundation of society is family, the family unit. When we lose the structure of the family, the society will collapse. It always does. It always has. It always will. The family is what holds the society together. That's why whenever you have disruption of a society or people who want to take it over or cause it to collapse, they attack the family. Psychological subversion is what that term is called. It's a well-known thing. It really became well-known after World War II, what it is. And anybody who's ignorant about it needs to go learn about what subversion is. I think it's called maybe it's called cultural subversion. Kind of blanking on that right now. It's the end of the day. But yeah. So if you want to destabilize society, you attack the family. And yeah, so this is the father and mother. Here's the mother, the nurturer. Here's the father. And family is really what this is all about at the end of the day. Because Capricorn, when the state becomes the father, that's when we have communism. Basically, the state says you have to rely on us and I'll give you everything you need and want. But then what happens is, just like an overbearing parent or an over-controlling parent, eventually that state, the father starts to it starts to infringe on your rights. It starts to want to look at what all your texts are, and it wants to get into your privacy, and it wants to start to regulate different things in your life, and you really start to lose freedom when you have too much dependency on the state or the society, right? And so this is all a reflection thing, and so all our mommy issues and daddy issues, those just get projected outward on the screen of the world. It's very, very, very interesting. Deidre says, is Capricorn a cardinal sign? Yes, it is. We'll get into cardinal, fixed, immutable. We'll get into that after this, okay? So number 11 now is going to be the opposite of Leo, which is Aquarius. We go zoop, 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 zoop. And we repeat that the line below this line, just a zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. Some will have an extra zig, which you can do. It really doesn't matter. So this is a very deep symbol. It has to do with the waves of light and sound. It has to do with, it's a very, very esoteric symbol. And the sign Aquarius has a lot of mysteries in it. However, this could just relate to the water, which the water bearer is pouring. It is an air sign. It's not a water sign. This can tend to confuse a lot of people. However, we're in the age of Aquarius, and what the symbol is about is the water bearer who is a mental person. You know, this is the only human in the whole zodiac. All the rest are animals and half animal with the centaur. Centaur is the archer. It's half horse, half man. Aquarius is the only man, and it has to do with pouring the water, which is the nourishment of the spirit, as knowledge down upon the people. So a lot of people predict that in the age of Aquarius, we will all come into a spontaneous interior realization of the true reality. And at that moment, we will have the dawn of the golden age on Earth. I think, you know, all that would have to really happen on Earth for there to be a massive change is if we could all just hear each other's thoughts. That's another symbol that this represents, is like mental airwaves. If all thoughts could be heard, there would be no more secrets. There'd be no more liars. There'd be no more cheaters, because you would know exactly what they're trying to do. As you would know as soon as they come into the store to steal something, if they're a thief or not. Everything would be made known. All secrets would be revealed. Even the Bible prophesies this. So I believe that's what might happen, is the walls that separate us, which is really our inability to read each other's minds. Once that's gone, you're going to have no choice but to deal with who you truly are. And so it's living spiritually is really about living as though everybody could already hear your thoughts, because that's being in an ultimate integrity. And so I try to live that way. However, I'm pretty glad people can't hear my thoughts sometimes, because I have a weird sense of humor. I'm not going to lie. So, however, I do try to consciously always think compliments. Every time I see anybody or anything, I'm always thinking things that I would be happy for you to hear if you could hear my thoughts. All right. And that's just a practice. That's my spiritual practice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the last sign here, number 12, and the opposite of Virgo, is Pisces. So we got a crescent going that way. We've got another crescent going this way, and it's connected by the horizontal line of what? What do horizontal lines symbolize? Anybody? The horizontal line symbolizes, very good, consciousness. Yep. So consciousness is connecting these two crescents, and the crescents represent the soul, right? So Pisces is about tying together and understanding these two parts of the soul. This sign rules the subconscious mind, dreams, visions, prophecies, all these sorts of things that Carl Jung discovered are all trying to contribute to us coming back into equilibrium. All your dreams, all these things, they're all trying to help you become healthy again spiritually. They're trying to show you what that direction is, because Carl Jung discovered that the psyche is a self-regulating system. It's always going to try to bring itself back into harmony or equilibrium. And one of the ways it does that is by speaking to you through the depths of the unconscious, through your dreams. Okay, so just as Virgo has to do with our health, our physical health, the intestines, what we eat, our physical diet, our habits, our routine, Pisces is about what is your spiritual routine like. And so these are the signs of health and healing. These are the signs of individuality and the collective, of creating from the self and creating within the society or in the collective as a group. These are the signs of procreation and creation, or of family and society. Basically family and society. These are the signs of learning and like you could say learning and higher learning. Like this is learning facts and figures and statistics. Gemini, concrete things. This is about learning abstracts, philosophy, religion, asking why. This is about asking how. Gemini. Sagittarius more about asking why. Okay, and these are the signs of, you know, the physicality and the emotional realm of sex, sex and sexuality, you could say, or sensuality and sexuality. And then these are the signs of individuality and relationship. And all these go together. You don't have one without the other. You don't have personal creativity without that somehow manifesting into collective creativity. All right. So every sign comes after the other one for a reason. And I'll try to paint what that reason is and what the picture is as we go along. So I hope that makes sense. We are coming on, it looks like we're going to push the 2-hour mark. So I'm okay with that, as long as you are. So hopefully everybody's got this. I'm going to erase it now. So say goodbye. Say bye-bye. And we're going to draw something even cooler now. And then that will conclude the signs. I'll show you a little bit more in a presentation. I'll share my screen again. And then that'll conclude this class. Absolutely. George said, wow, that was insane. He says that was insane how they relate, more than memorized, conceptualized. Absolutely. I'm glad. That was my goal here. Okay. Goodbye. And hello. So where did my... All right. This one's going to be a little more challenging, but I think you guys are ready for it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a circle. Okay. And you're going to want the circle to be big enough where you can fill in the circle with the signs. Okay. So this is going to be so amazing for you to learn this. Again, how I do a circle, it can be helpful to have 4 points figured out, or at least, you know, even just mentally. We'll go to like here, go a little more up here. All right, and then just to mentally, it helps if you kind of do it quadrant by quadrant. So I'm roughly doing it to that quadrant, going to the bottom. And it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It can be a weird egg blob looking thing. It's okay. You're just going to want to make sure you have enough space within the circle. So kind of make the circle a little bigger than you think. Now we're going to divide the circle to these familiar symbols. And we're going to divide it once again, give us some quarters. Boom. Hopefully you're all following along okay. Now we got the 4 quadrants. Very good. Very, very good. Now we're going to divide this even further. All right. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to know that we're going to have 2 divisions within the quadrants. And that is going to give us the 12. Okay. So this first one, we're just going to go to here. Boom. Boom. And another boom. Boom. All right. Not too bad, right? Hopefully you guys are doing good. Again, now for this quadrant, boom, and boom. It doesn't have to look pretty. Let your inner perfectionist just feel the pain and just endure that pain. It's okay. You're perfect just as you are. Again, we're going to go boom and boom. Okay. And then once again, 2 more lines now in this quadrant. Same as before. Boom. Boom. Okay, good job. All right, now we've got the 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13? No, 12. Okay, so great job. Now, what I'd like for you to do is to number them, if you would. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead and do it in the inner center, just like I'm doing there. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Great job, everybody. Okay, you're doing great. Now we're going to put the sign in here, and we're going to just draw it in right here. Okay, and we're going to want to leave a little bit of space within it for some other things. So number one is we're going to draw Aries right here, the symbol of Aries. Okay, and what we need to know is that Aries starts the season of spring. Every sign that starts a season is known as a cardinal sign. Cardinal is an energy which is I think it's centripetal. It goes outwards. It's about energy which is outrushing. Cardinal signs are amazing starters. They're good at starting things, starting projects, getting things off the ground, but they're not so good at finishing them. They're not so good at, staying consistent with them. Their strength is in starting. Okay, so you can write C here for cardinal if you want, or you can write out cardinal if you want to do that. C means cardinal. And I'm going to do a little slash here, and then I'm going to write F for fire. Okay. And actually what I'm going to do is, if I can, do some color coding here again. All right, so I'm going to take my red marker. I'm going to draw Aries symbol. Okay. And then I'm going to draw C for cardinal, do a little line, F for fire. So it's cardinal fire. Cardinal fire. There's only one sign which is both cardinal and fire, and that sign is Aries. This is how you know what Aries is. It's cardinal fire. So cardinal fire is outrushing fiery energy. It's about fire which wants to get started. Okay? So that characterizes the Aries energy of people. It's a quick starting fiery flame. All right, next we have Taurus. We're just going to draw the symbol for Taurus right in there in the second house. All right, so this is the second segment, also called a house. And Taurus is fixed. So if you want to write out fixed, you can do that. I'm going to do F for fixed, and slash, I'm going to do an E for earth. Okay. It's a fixed sign. The way we know it's fixed is because it's in the center of the season. So here we're going to have the spring signs. Okay. Spring. These three signs are all spring. Over here, it's going to be summer. Summer. Okay. Next, we have the last sign of spring, which is what? Gemini. You're so smart. All right. And Gemini is a mutable sign. So I'm going to do an M. And it's an air sign. So I'm going to do an A. All right. Mutable signs end the season. So here we have centripetal, here we have centrifugal, and here we have vibratory motion. I'll show you that on a slide. It has to do, maybe you remember in school, on the wheel, you have the spokes, you have the center or the hub, and then you have the outer rim. So cardinal signs are the ones that go out toward the rim in the wheel energy. Fixed signs go inward toward the hub. Fixed signs are very steady. They're about concentrating the energy. They can hold it down. All right. Just like Taurus holds down the energy of spring. Mutable signs are the vibratory energy that travels to and from the center and the rim. So they're very adaptable people, and they get made fun of for having no real identity or whatever. And it's just because they're so flexible. So to us, other people, they come across as like too flighty, or like they have no backbone, or like they're just no real sense of self. They do kind of struggle with that because they're mutable. It's a mutable sign. Mutable is here as vibratory energy to transition or transform. They help us move on and move forward. They're very good at finishing up things, especially karma wise. They're good at tying up karma and getting it finished. All right. So that's Gemini. Air, and it's mutable and it's air. Okay. Next. So now the fourth sign. So 1 and 4 are seen to be cardinal signs. And those cardinal signs are going to be 1, 4, 7, and 10. You'll see that as we go. And this is where the magic really comes in as you memorize this. So we're going to draw Cancer. All right, the symbol for Cancer. It is a cardinal sign. So I'm going to draw a C. And it is a water sign. So I'm going to do a W. All right, Cancer starts summer. So it's a cardinal sign. It's about starting. It's about initiating action, but it's about initiating emotional action because it's a water sign. So these are the signs that are this sign is very tenacious and will do what it has to do. It'll initiate the action it needs to start the family, or to create a home, or to create security in life, whether that's emotional security or physical security. Both really go hand in hand in this physical world. So that's what Cancer is. It's about being an emotional leader, which the mother is in the family. The mother is the one that leads the family. She leads the vibe. She makes the home. She's the one who leads the tone or the vibe that pervades the home, right? So then we have the fifth sign, which is Leo. I'm going to draw the symbol for Leo up in here. And Leo is a fixed sign, the only fixed fire sign. So I'm going to do a slash and do another F there for fire. Fixed fire. So if you think of fire fixed at a center point, that would kind of look like a sun. It would look like an orb. So Leo is, in fact, ruled by the sun. We'll get into the planets and how the planets fit into this later in a little bit. So that's Leo. Leo holds it down for the summer. It's one of the most powerful signs just because the sun is the most powerful luminary, and fixed fire can be like a laser as far as concentrated energy goes. Okay, so then summer is going to end with Virgo. We got the M, or the power coil, and that crossed leg at the end. And this is a mutable sign. Why? Because it ends the season of summer. We'll do another slash and we'll do an E for Earth, just to remember it's Earth. Okay, now we come into the fall signs. This quadrant over here is the fall, or autumn. And that gets initiated by the cardinal air sign, Libra. Okay. And Libra is a cardinal sign once again, and it's air. This is the cardinal air sign. This is about initiating mental or social action. Action because it's cardinal, mental or social because it's air. Okay? That's making sense. These guys are very subtle in how they lead, but if you pay attention to Libras, they're still very cardinal. They will lead things to happen, or they'll start things. Okay. So next we've got water, which comes after air. And this water sign is going to be Scorpio. Scorpio is the one that holds the fall down. Boom. And it is a fixed sign because it's in the center of the season, and it is water. So fixed water, you can think of a whirlpool. You can think of a vortex, fixed to a center. So it's water. It's about concentrated emotional energy. Very powerful. And then we've got the last fire sign to appear, which is going to be Sagittarius. Boom, with the arrow. And this is a mutable sign, and it's a fire sign, mutable fire. So Sagittarius doesn't quite have that explosiveness of Aries with cardinal fire. It doesn't have the focus or the fixedness that Leo does, but it's very adaptable fire, which is sort of like a forest fire or a fire that's thinly laid out across the environment. These guys can keep the party going. Not quite as much as Leo can. I mean, but they can keep it alive because they're good at going to all different kinds of people and talking to them and chatting it up and keeping the energy of the room integrated. And that's what all these mutable signs are really good at. And so just add in the fire element. It's about keeping things exciting. And Sagittarius is really good at that. All right, next we come into the winter quadrant. And in winter, we have it started by an earth sign. Earth is next. Again, see, you don't have to overthink it. It's just, there's the fishtail because it's apparently a fish goat, Capricorn. And then there's the kneecap and whatever, it rules the knees. So cardinal earth. All right, it's a cardinal sign, but it's an earth sign. And it rules the winter, it starts the winter. Okay. So yeah, this is the polarity to Cancer. So as a cardinal sign, it's about initiating action, but it's about initiating material action because it's an earth sign. So I'll go over all these again, incorporating the cardinal, fixed, and mutable, which are called the qualities. Okay. So cardinal, fixed, and mutable. These are the qualities. It shows the quality of energy, whereas the element shows, the element of the energy. Yeah, I believe they're called the qualities. I think they're also called the modes. So, but yeah, that'll work for now. George says, what did you say Cap does? Materializing opposite to Cancer. So Capricorn builds the society. Cancer builds the home, initiates the building of the home or the family unit. Capricorn builds the society. So it's all about structure, laws, governments, things that help contain the society and keep it running. But if it goes unchecked, it becomes very oppressive and overly controlling. So it needs the opposite, which is the Cancer, the emotional receptivity and the sensitivity to know when it's no longer nurturing, but when it's actually starts choking the life out. And Aquarius steps in to help with this as well. Aquarius is the revolutionary, and it's that phase of consciousness that goes, okay, is this way that we're running society, is it healthy for the human spirit, or is it choking us to death? And that's really what Aquarius helps to do. Aquarius can go over the top and be way too much of a rebel, which is really just a reaction to the society. Purple hair, 1,000 million piercings everywhere, crazy wardrobe. All that stuff is a hyper individualization, Leo thing, which is really all just in reaction to the society. So those people are just really actually trying to fit in even more. They just don't realize it. They don't realize that by trying to be so different, they're actually just in reaction to the thing that they're trying to be different from. It's just another form of conformity. So it's very interesting how that ties in, because Aquarius is the sign of this hyper individuality, but it's also about fitting into the group. And we'll never really be able to get away from that. It's very interesting. All right. Then the whole cycle gets all dissolved by the work of Pisces. Pisces brings it to the ultimate ending. Again, we got the two crescents and the line of consciousness connecting it. This is a mutable sign, of course, and it's a water sign. So this ends the winter and prepares it for the new spring, for a new cycle to emerge. So this is the wheel. Good job. Congratulations. You just wrote out the entire wheel of the Zodiac and you filled it in with the qualities or the mode and the element. So very, very well done. This is a whole, complete, closed system with no holes in it. It's completely perfect in its oppositions. This is a perfect representation of duality and all the different ways that consciousness can manifest or that creation can be revealed. So I've got a few more interesting slides I can show you, and then we will wrap it up. So yeah, those are the qualities. Over here, we've got the elements. All right. Fire, earth, air, water. So we got 4 and 3. Okay. So we see a cycle here. Cardinal, fixed, mutable. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We see another pattern. Fire, earth, air, water. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's perfect in the way that it works. There's one for each quality and element. Come on, give us some deets on the Pisces, details on Pisces. So Pisces is a very interesting sign. It is very mysterious. It basically is the empath or the emotional sponge. Pisces is the archetype of the martyr, just like Jesus Christ, the ultimate martyr. He took on the sins and the sufferings of the entire world and allowed himself to be killed and crucified so that he could transmute all that karma or all that energy, which was a debt that really it could never be paid off, but he took it on because he lived a perfect life and was the only one that had no debt, had no karmic debt. And yet he took it all on and allowed himself to be killed so that he could overcome death. And in the overcoming of death, get rid of all of our sins or our indebtedness, which we chose by breaking off away from spirit, getting immersed in matter and losing ourselves in the flesh. So Pisces is about release through suffering, release from the bondage of matter. It's about freeing ourselves from this whole cycle. And this is why at the end, at the 12th cycle, we have to be willing to let go. All of life is really just a lesson about learning how to let go. Whatever we're not letting go of in life, it's holding on to us and it's preventing us from getting where we need to go. Because once this restarts, it's really a spiral. From this view, it looks like a circle, but if you were to twist it, you would see it was a spiral upwards. That consciousness is forever growing and expanding and spiraling. So it looks like a circle to many of us is actually a spiral in reality. Whether that's in life, we see people going through the same thing over and over. We just can't quite see the spiral dimension of it most of the time. But anyways, it does become a circle. We do become trapped when we don't let go. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's good or bad, we have to let go. That's just the lesson of life. That's the lesson of love, really. Yeah, so that's the signs there. I've got one more thing for you that I think will be really interesting. Before I let you go, and then that'll conclude this class. And then we can hang out and do a Q&A at the end for whoever has any questions, or if you guys want to show your work, I'd love to see what you did. I'd love to see your drawings. So that is that. We did it. Well done, guys. Very proud of you. Very, very proud of you. Cue the clapping noise. Okay. All right. So help me out here. Okay. It's pretty sweet that you can use your iPhone as a webcam if you compare it with your Mac. So let me just show you a few more interesting slides about the zodiac. So we talked about the elements, and the elements are different modes of consciousness or different ways that the consciousness takes form. So these are ancient classifications, and it's because as above, so below. So as within, so without. Just as in nature, we see these four elements. That's how our personalities are integrated as well. You have fiery personalities, watery personalities, airy personalities, and earthy personalities. And then you have a combination of all those different things. And you have really nothing outside that. That's the whole spectrum of energy, both in nature and in personality. So fire is hot and dry. Earth is cold and dry. Water is cold and wet. Air is warm and wet. So the elements are made up of these different qualities. Okay. These states each had an opposite, but they could combine to make all the material substances. So this is what the magician or the alchemist works with, are these four states. Medieval thinkers believed there were four elements that made up all of matter, each possessing two possible thermal states, that is hot or cold, and two states of humidity, wet or dry. All right. The substances were thought to be ranked in a chain, with fire being the highest, relating to spirit, air the next highest, which is relating to mind or the mental realm, followed by water, which is the emotional realm, the realm of feeling, and earth, which is the realm of sensation, was considered the lowest and the least spiritual, or the most dense of the four. Okay. It's pretty important to understand when we're understanding the elements and how they work. Okay. So there's the fifth element. I believe that's you as the observer. Some say it's ether, but I think the fifth is basically the awareness, which contains and transcends all manifestation. Like we have the four elements, yeah, but we also have an awareness of the four elements. And I think that's the fifth, which is transcendent to the four. So there's basically four functions of the ego to interpret reality. Carl Jung had his four types as well. And his four types were intuition, thinking, feeling, and sensation. So intuition is fire. It's gut feeling experience given without the use or medium of mental activity. It's higher than mental activity. Source of inspiration, creativity, and novel ideas. Those are the fire signs. The thinking signs have to do with the air signs rather have to do with rational analysis, understanding and responding with the intellect, with the rationality, connecting ideas to come to a general understanding, and they're rather detached and unemotional. So this shows their nature. Okay. The nature of water sign people, water is about interpreting things at a value level. Is this going to be pleasurable or painful? Painful things are not valuable. Pleasurable things have value, right? So it evaluates by feelings of pleasant or unpleasantness, and it's emotional, and it has an innate sensitivity hardwired into it for it to accomplish that. The earth signs are about sensation. It's about, if I can't touch it and feel it for myself, I don't really know if it's real. That's what the earth signs innately have in their predisposition with life. It's about conscious perception through the sense organs. They're practical and very systematic. Okay. We also have four bodies. We've got the physical body, but then we have the astral body, which bears our instincts, our passions, our drives. And then we have the mental body, which holds all of our knowledge and wisdom and, well, not wisdom actually, but just our knowledge and the facts and the things that we have memorized. And then number four, we have the spiritual body, which is about self-awareness and wisdom. And I want you guys to know that these bodies can be poisoned. So your physical body gets poisoned when it takes in impure things, impurities, chemicals, fast food, these sorts of things. Or when it doesn't get exercise, it starts to decay, use it or lose it. But the same thing applies emotionally, if you watch too many horror movies or too many sad movies and you just wallow too much in bad emotions and you take that in, that can make your emotional body very sick. You have to purge by crying or by, self-expression. Crying is one of the best ways to carry energy out and away from the body. Your mental body can also get sick if you are believing things that aren't true. So if you don't know something for yourself, it's best not to just repeat what other people have told you, okay? Especially when it comes to the things that you think are obvious. Like everybody knows the earth is round. That's not a fact. And you need to think for yourself and just make sure you're not just reverting back to what the priests over at NASA have told you, but that you are asking hard questions all the time about the nature of reality, because whatever you accept as true, if you're just repeating something somebody told you, you don't actually know for yourself, it would be best to leave it as a blank rather than to assume that you know what's true. Because if you believe lies, your mental body gets sick. And then what happens is it gets harder and harder to actually know the truth. It's much better to just leave it as a blank and just wait and see if you don't fully know yet, because consensus is not the end all be all when it comes to knowledge. Okay. The spiritual self also becomes very sick when we lack self-awareness and connection to God, which again, God is just the force beating your heart. It's that most personal element to you, which you truly know and which truly knows you. And you're the only one who can make a connection with that. Nobody can be a bridge to God for you. That's the whole sham really of all religion, is that, you're the only one who can make that connection, that relationship to your heart. There's a lot of other interesting things we can get into as far as symbology. Northeast, southwest, it does correspond to the 4 elements. Cardinal, fixed, immutable also relate to the other directions, which are above, below, and within. Very, very interesting stuff. And then we can get even more into the elements, but I think maybe we could save that for another day. Yeah, so this is the whole zodiac. Basically, it's the whole body of your whole self, serves as a timekeeper for the many cycles of growth that a soul undergoes here on earth. And each segment or each sign corresponds to a particular mode of consciousness or energy and can be understood through the symbolism of that sign, through the sign and through the sign's relationship to all the other signs. So if you want to understand Scorpio, just understand how it is in relationship to all the other signs. What is opposite Scorpio? What is right next to Scorpio? What comes before Scorpio? And as you learn this whole picture, and especially as you memorize it, guys, it will blow your mind, the ideas that start to spring up within you. Again, here's a representation of the zodiac overlaid over the body. You got Aries at the head, Taurus at the throat, and so on and so forth. Again, you guys will get all these slides. So yeah, here's another way you could look at the 12 signs, and then I'll end it here. So we all have these 12 signs, just like we're all born with these different parts of the body. We all have these 12 signs somewhere in our chart. We all have the need to be independent, to develop self-awareness. That's Aries. Taurus, we all have a need to be resourceful, productive, and stable. Gemini, we all have a need to communicate with and learn from others. Cancer, we all have a need to give and receive emotional warmth and nurturance and to feel at home. Leo, we all have a need to creatively express ourselves and be appreciated by others. Virgo, we all have a need to analyze, discriminate, and function efficiently, to think for ourselves. Libra, we all have a need to cooperate and create beauty, balance, and harmony. Scorpio, we all have a need for deep involvement and for intense transformations. Sagittarius, we all have a need to explore and expand the horizons of our mind and our world. Capricorn, we all have a need for structure, organization, and social accomplishment. Aquarius, we all have a need to be innovative in our lives, to be original, and to create social change. And Pisces, we all have a need to commit to a dream or an ideal and to work towards its realization, to lose ourselves in that, to surrender ourselves to that, to let go into it. Okay? Right. So I'm going to end it here with this quote. The injunction, this is a quote by Saint Germain. The injunction, man, know thyself, must be applied by you to the pure truth of being and not to human concepts of what the truth is. It is dangerous, however, to be critical of another or of his concepts, for only the individual can apprehend through the screen of his own being his world and the cosmos beyond. No one can have true peace until the sword of divine discrimination enables him to discern reality for himself and then protect the inherent gifts and graces God has sealed within him in order to make of each life stream a glorious facet in the master plan of the creation. Right? Beautiful. And here's just one last little note, just so you know, I don't know, you can't, okay, when it comes to reading birth charts, you can't know what's in another person's mind and feelings by looking into their chart. All that I can see when I read charts is where the planets were when they took their first breath. And all that I know is my own experience based on where the planets were when I was born and how that ties into my own energy and who I am and my personality and the way it's put together. And the more that I know myself, the more I can know others. The more that I get in tune with my Venus and Cancer, for example, can I start to tune into that Cancer energy, really understand what it's about and what it feels like and what it could be like for others. So the only expert on you is you. And that's just the truth. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I hope this class was helpful and insightful. I hope it gave you a firm foundation to understanding this ancient knowledge of the human psyche. And I love you so much. I'm so grateful to be able to do this. I love teaching this stuff. So we're going to get into the Q&A with the class here, but this is the end of the recording. So I just want to wish you well. I love you so much. Be very blessed in your life. Let the light in your heart continue to guide you and to fill your mind. And it's going to be so exciting to give you the whole other part. This was really just half of it. The other half is going to be the planets. And once you see what planets rule what signs, it's going to click that much more about the meaning of it all. Because, for example, as I was saying, the light in your heart, it will guide you. And that heart is the sun. The light within is the sun within you. And the sun is exalted in Aries, the sign of the head and the brain, the sign of the head. So the heart will illuminate the brain as the brain becomes receptive to the heart. And that is where the highest expression of the individual comes alive. So we're going to see that through the different rulerships of the planets and how they fit in with the signs. And I will see you on that date of the next class. I love you so much. Be blessed. Reach out to me if you want a reading or if you have any questions, or if you'd like to enroll in my full-length course, My Cosmic Identity, where you become a master of your own birth chart and you dive deep into all the planets and the signs in your own chart. All right. I love you so much. I will see you soon. Peace.